Hi guys, welcome to the channel. Today we're gonna do something really basic with squelches, and we're gonna be on faceplant today, and it's gonna sound something like this. So yeah, that's what it sounds like, and as you can see over there, the squelch happens kind of repeatedly, and then we have a filter that's kind of sweeping up and down. And for this one, we're gonna use faceplant as I mentioned, and here I have my faceplant open already. As I said, it's something really basic, but what I'm gonna do is to scrap this, and then I'm gonna do it from scratch. Okay, so here we have a empty instance of faceplant. So what we want to do is to add a analog oscillator, and then in order for us to create the squelch sound, we need to have some sort of pitch modulation. For that, generally people tend to use envelopes, but what I like for this example is to actually use an LFO so I can time it better. Because with envelopes, you know, as soon as you change your BPM, you cannot kind of sync it to the tempo. So here's my LFO, and that's nice and neat. So what I want this LFO to do is to actually ramp it up, and it's gonna be within the time period of 16/16. So it's just 1 bar, right? And then we're gonna tie that to our semi-7 modulation here. And it's gonna be -24. If you right click on this thing, you can get these values, and then you can just do type -24. So I'm telling my oscillator to kind of get that pitch modulation of 2 octaves over 1 bar. So if I just hold my keyboard, it's gonna sound something like this. Of course, maybe that was a bit too much, so I'm just gonna go a couple of octaves down. Alright, so that's better. That gives you that kind of, you know, squelchy, zappy sound over a longer period of time. So it's maybe like a longer zap, actually. So another thing is that we want to create a filter, a bandpass filter. And you can do something like this. So as you saw over there, we had a bandpass filter modulation going really slow over maybe 8 bars, but for our sound design purposes, this bandpass filter is actually going to modulate within 16 bars. So for that, we can create another LFO, and I want this LFO to be a triangle. If it lets me, let's see. It doesn't. Okay, here you go. So there's a triangle, and I'm gonna offset it so it doesn't go this way. It's just gonna be a long triangle, like ascending and then descending triangle. So if I phase it by, let's see, -90. Again, I just right clicked over there. And then this one, as I said, I wanted to modulate my filter, but I wanted to modulate over 16 bars. 16. So if I go all the way 64 and I go 4, that's 16 bars. What I wanted to do is to be unipolar. By the way, one thing I forgot is I want this to be unipolar as well. So the way I kind of work things out on faceplant kind of happens with more macros, especially if I have an LFO. So what I do is basically get this macro assigned to this filter, like so. So when this macro goes 100% up, it's gonna go, you know, up 48% on this filter spectrum. So you can see maybe that's a bit too much. So what I want to do maybe is to decrease it, and I can kind of exactly see where my filter is going to stop. So something around here, something around 30, 35 is fine. And so now I'm gonna apply this triangle LFO to this macro. The way I do that is because I know exactly this modulation is gonna happen within this range when I use the macro. So if you look at my filter where it is right now, I can actually maybe pull it down a bit more. Yeah, like there. So when my macro is 100, it's gonna be over there. So that's why I just want more control over how I kind of modulate it. So I tie it to macro first, and then I modulate the macro with my LFO, if that makes sense. So this can be 100%. So over 16 bars, that macro is going to go. As you can see, it's just affecting our filter. It's great that Faceblend shows you all this stuff. So basically, I'm going to play what's going on right now. So that's pretty much the entire gist of the sound, actually. It's really similar to what you just heard. What you can do is to maybe distort it a little bit. So if you added some distortion. So you're getting a bunch of things. I'm gonna add reverb and delay. Maybe you can just do it right here. I had my sense for the actual sound, but just for the sake of this tutorial, maybe we can just add a reverb, and then I add my delay after. Let's just hear with some delay and reverb. For my reverb, for my delay, I want it to be 1/4 dotted. So the mathematical equation for that, I believe, is this. And then we can hear how this sounds right now. Alright, so that's kind of what I did with my effects. So as you saw over here, I turned off the distortion. I don't really like it on the sound, but if you like it, you can always add it back. So I'm going to leave it as is here. And now I can actually go back and start working on my arrangement. So yeah, this is pretty much the sound design portion of it, guys. So as you can see, I had a massive 16 bar long MIDI note over here, because that's kind of what I want to do. So this 16 bar, if you remember, we actually modulated our filter within 16 bars. That's why I have it this long. The actual sound, if you look at it, is actually 8 bars long. And what we'll do is to actually manually chop and sequence these sounds so they actually fit within 8 bars. And I'm going to tell you how I do it right now. So one thing I want to do here is to bounce this so I can get an audio clip like that. Okay, as you can see, I have an audio clip that is 16 bars long. So here, I'm going to chop it manually, and I'm going to tell you how I do it. You might have different ways of doing this, but I just found this way to be kind of like fastest working for me. So I get my knife tool on Bitwig, and then I cut every 1 bar. So you should have 16 audio bits. So as you can see, we have our 1 bar bits. So here is a little bit of math. Basically, what I want to do is to have these two bits to fit in one bar. At the moment, they're spanning for 2 bars. But what I want to do is to, just fit them in one bar. It means that we need to have 1/16th notes to make him fit in one bar, right? So for those, I do 6 1/16th notes for the first bit. So you will cut it here. If that doesn't make sense, you can literally count it here. So here, if you look at my time signature, let me move my picture here. Okay, so if you look at my time signature down below, it means like every, on my grid it's 1/16th, right? So I basically just count it. So you look at my grid 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's where I should cut my first bit within that one bar. So that's kind of the timing I'm looking for. And the second bit would just kind of snap back, and this would have the rest of the 10 of 1/16th notes, if that makes sense. So again, I'm just going to go over it again. So basically what I do, I just drag these back and I make them 6 16th notes long. And then the second bit within that bar takes 10 1/16th notes. So hopefully that makes sense. So I'm just going to go over this and I'm going to be right back. Okay, so that's what we did with our sound. In order to avoid clipping, what I do is I just cut from the tails. I just fade it from the tails. So just a tiny bit, just so we don't have any clipping at the end. And then, so as you can see now, my faceplant note is actually 16 bars long, but this sound effect is just 8 bars long. And then I just gel it. And as I said initially, I would normally have sends that to create these effects like reverb and delays, which I have on my original sound here. So if you look at here, I did that. But for the sake of this tutorial, we went over those effects within faceplant. So, but you can do that too. I find that if I apply effects with sends, I kind of have better control over the sound, and and you don't have to go back and tweak it within the VST, especially if you bounce your sounds like this. It might get a little hectic after a while. So I just bounce them dry and then apply effects on these sends over here. So let's just hear how it sounds by itself. And yeah, guys, one last thing is that you want to cut those lows. So what I do is I add a EQ, and then you can just cut it however you like. I generally use kind of steep curves just to make sure that I have a good amount of space for kick and bass. And yeah, it should be good to go now. Alright guys, that was it for today. I hope you found it helpful. Please let me know what you think in the comments. If you like the video, hit that like button. If you dislike it, hit that dislike button. But yeah, I really appreciate your feedback. I try to catch up with your feedback that is maybe like from way before. So and hopefully I'll be more active on the channel going forward. But yeah, thanks so much for watching again, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.